Hello there, and welcome back to the Science Sleepy Minds. Tonight, you're stepping aboard a gleaming silver spacecraft, humming quietly in low orbit, its polished hull catching the last faint rays of sunlight from a very distant Earth. The planet is already shrinking behind you, a brilliant marble of cloud and colour, spinning gently and completely unaware that you're about to break up with time itself. You lean back in your seat, because of course it reclines, and try to pretend this is a normal Tuesday. It isn't. You're about to accelerate toward the speed of light, and Fred, you probably won't survive this. Well, at least not in the way you think. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it in your part of the world? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The engine hum shifts pitch as your ship begins to move. At first it's nothing impressive, a few thousand kilometers per hour, no big deal. Airliners manage that all the time, but the thing is, space has no air resistance, no traffic and no speed limits, so you keep going, and going, and going, until suddenly you're moving fast enough to circle Earth in the time it takes to sneeze, and you're still accelerating. Now here's where things stop behaving nicely, because the closer you get to the speed of light, 299,792,458 meters per second, if you're counting, the weirder time gets. You probably thought time was a dependable thing. You age, your coffee gets cold, your dog somehow knows when dinner's late. But in physics, time is not absolute. It's not even fair. It's stretchy, selfish, and frankly, a little rude. Right now, back on Earth, a friend might be making dinner. By the time they finish boiling pasta, you could be a few million kilometers away and already starting to age slower than them. Barely noticeably at first, but exponentially more so the faster you go. That's not a metaphor. That's the literal bending of time, a direct gift from our chaotic little buddy. Special relativity. When Albert Einstein first proposed this in 1905, people thought he'd finally snapped from too much chalk dust. His theory of special relativity said that time and space were not separate, but instead woven together in a stretchy, bendy thing called space-time. Move fast enough through space, and you move slow through time. And as long as you stay just under light speed, there's no upper limit to how slow your time can get, so you sip your little squeeze bag of recycled space water, casually cruising at a speed where light from the sun barely outruns you, and back on Earth, well, it's complicated. 10 seconds for you might be 12, 50, even hundreds for someone back home, depending on just how fast you're going. Historians still argue whether early science fiction writers truly understood time dilation, or if they were just rolling with cool-sounding concepts. But what you're experiencing now, it's very real. The ship's internal clock still ticks forward, your heartbeat is the same, your beard grows, if you have one, and Netflix still wants to know if you're still watching. Everything inside your bubble behaves normally. But outside the bubble, Earth has started sprinting into the future. One mainstream historical example, the Haffel-Keating experiment in 1971, when scientists flew atomic clocks on commercial airplanes around the world. The clocks on the planes came back with slightly different times than the ones on the ground. Not theoretical, not imaginary, measured, documented, confirmed, and that was at airplane speed. You're going thousands, soon millions, of times faster. You glance out the observation window and stars have begun to smear into elongated streaks. Not because they're actually moving, but because your velocity is now distorting how light reaches your eyes. The universe is still, you are not. Welcome to the Relativistic Club. And here's a little fringe fact to add to your trip. Some alternative thinkers once speculated that UFO sightings could be craft experiencing time at different rates than we do, blinking in and out of vision due to relativistic effects. Is that real science? Let's just say, maybe not. but it's fun at this altitude, right? The problem now is that time is no longer your loyal companion. You used to walk together. Now you're jogging while time is still walking. Pretty soon you'll be sprinting, and poor time is gasping for breath miles behind you. And the kicker, you're not even close to light speed yet. As you accelerate, your ship gets heavier. Not to you, of course, but from an Earth perspective, your mass increases. So it takes exponentially more energy to keep pushing faster. That's the universe's sneaky way of saying, you'll never actually reach light speed, but nice try, buddy. It's like trying to catch your own shadow in a hallway of mirrors. No matter how fast you run, it keeps slipping just ahead. But even approaching 90%, 95%, 99% of light speed is enough to throw time into a blender. If you left Earth now and travelled for what feels like a few months to you at 99.999% light speed, you could return home to find centuries past. Cultures risen and fallen, skyscrapers rusted into gardens, languages evolved beyond recognition. And your apartment rent? Let's not even go there. You'd still feel like yourself, still only a year or two older depending on your route. But the universe around you will have aged dramatically. You'll be the anomaly, the slow clock in a fast world. Aging, it turns out, isn't about your biology alone. It's about how fast you move through space-time, move faster through space, and time lets you age slower. But Earth won't wait for you, and neither will history. You're still accelerating, by the way. Not that you feel it. Your ship's artificial gravity keeps everything cozy and smooth, like you're on a high-end Japanese bullet train that forgot to stop. Outside, though, the stars begin to look off. They shift, squish, even change colour slightly. The front-facing ones take on a blue tint, thanks to something called relativistic Doppler shift. Light itself is being warped by your speed. Welcome to the funhouse mirror of space-time. Inside, your ship hums quietly. No alarms, no sirens. Your smartwatch says it's Tuesday. Maybe. Your calendar app is already confused, trying to sync with Earth servers that think it's next year, or maybe next century, depending on how close you're creeping to that infamous 99.999% of light speed. And yet, you feel normal. This is the weirdest part. Your heart beats steadily, your fingernails still grow, you read, nap, scroll through old photos of Earth like some interstellar retiree. But every moment that passes for you is slipping out of sync with the universe behind you. You're starting to outrun time itself, or at least Earth's version of it. Back home, your dog, if it's still alive, is definitely wondering where you are. Your high school crush probably has grandchildren. Your favourite sitcom might be entering its fourth gritty reboot. But you've only aged a few months, maybe less. That's not an exaggeration. That's physics. Here's the strange, slightly unsettling truth. Clocks don't just slow down when you move fast. They break ranks. Time itself becomes a personal experience, one that varies depending on how fast you're moving relative to someone else. The term for this is time dilation, and it's not just a sci-fi trope. It's one of the strangest and most experimentally confirmed predictions of Einstein's special relativity. Remember that whole, the faster you go, the slower you age thing? It's not poetic, it's literal. Every tick of your onboard clock is longer than the tick of a stationary clock back on Earth. From your perspective, their clocks are in fast forward. From theirs, you're crawling through molasses. So let's give this some numbers. Let's say you accelerate to 99.9999% the speed of light. At that velocity, for every single day you experience on your ship, decades, maybe even centuries, pass back on Earth. This isn't an exaggeration. It's a direct result of Lorentz transformations, the math backbone of special relativity. If you're itching for numbers, the time dilation factor, called gamma, gets ridiculous at these speeds. A gamma of, say, 7 means that for every year you experience, 7 years pass back home. Crank that up to gamma equals 700. Well, You get the idea. Historians still argue whether early astronomers truly grasped how time could stretch and compress so dramatically. Some insist ancient stargazers sensed something odd about celestial movement. Others say that's giving too much credit to people who thought Mars went backward every few years. Either way, no one expected that you could live a short life and witness the end of civilization just by moving fast enough. You glance at your reflection in the glossy surface of a control panel. You look fine. You don't feel ancient. You don't feel like the universe is time fugitive, but that's exactly what you are now. And here's a delightfully weird fringe theory. A few speculative physicists once hypothesized that, given enough speed, humans could opt out of the universal aging curve, becoming something like time tourists. It was never taken seriously in academic circles, but it stuck around in pulp novels and conspiracy forums. People imagined secret government projects, launching test pilots into relativistic orbits to preserve them. No evidence, obviously, but it's a great short story. Now back to you. Let's say you get curious. You send a video message to Earth, your parents, your childhood friends, that one barista who always got your name wrong. The ship's comms compress the message and beam it back at light speed. But by the time it arrives, they've changed. Maybe they've aged beyond recognition. Maybe they've passed away. Or maybe civilization itself is unrecognizable, full of chrome buildings, AI-led governments, or dust and silence. And when they answer, you'll receive it years later, even if for them it was immediate. The light speed limit is cruel like that. You're not just separated by distance, you're separated by time itself. A delay you can't cancel, no matter how many bars you have on your cosmic Wi-Fi. Inside your ship, you make another cup of space coffee. You start noticing that things back home are harder to track. Social media timelines stop syncing. Global events blur together. News updates read like science fiction or ancient history. Earth begins to feel like a memory, not a place. You're still aging, just much, much slower. And here's where it gets interesting. Your biological processes are in sync with your local time. Your cells divide at the same rate. Your hair, still, refuses to grow the way you want. If you cut yourself, it heals at the normal pace, for you. But if someone back on Earth were watching, they'd see you frozen in slow motion. To them, you'd look like a glitch, like someone edited you into the frame at half speed while the rest of the world continues at 1x. And that's not all. You're also aging asymmetrically compared to everyone else in the universe. You've become a walking, talking paradox, a reminder that the cosmos doesn't run on synchronized watches. It runs on speed, motion, and really inconvenient math. All this might sound like fiction. But in 2020, when physicists reviewed time dilation effects on particles in accelerators, they confirmed, again, that these effects are very real. Moons, tiny subatomic particles, live much longer when they move close to light speed. It's as if the universe offers them a temporary cheat code. Go fast enough, and you get bonus time. Well, now you're the moon. Congratulations. The stars outside are still blurring. There's no sense of motion, just a deepening stillness. The paradox of high-speed travel. You're going faster than almost anything that's ever existed. But inside the ship, it feels like floating in a moment that never ends. Time, that old familiar friend, is still here, just not playing by its usual rules. And you? You're aging, yes, but not in any way that Earth would understand. You're somewhere between Pluto and no one's ever been this far, and you haven't even finished your playlist yet. As your ship drifts through the outer dark, if you can call screaming through space at relativistic speeds drifting, your thoughts start to turn back home. Well, to a version of home that probably doesn't exist anymore, and you have a twin. Or you did. Same birth minute, same baby photos, same matching Thing 1 and Thing 2 shirts from an overzealous aunt. And now? Well, If you could compare yourselves side by side, they'd be decades, maybe centuries older than you. Depending on your speed, your twin might have lived a full life, graduated college, gotten married, become an elder statesperson of Earth's fifth political reformation, and passed away. You've barely needed a haircut. Welcome to the twin paradox, one of the most iconic and brain-bending thought experiments in all of physics. Here's the setup. Two twins. One stays on Earth, the other goes on a high-speed space journey. When the traveller returns, they're younger. Dramatically so. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally younger. Historians still argue whether this scenario first emerged from Einstein himself, or whether it was formalised later by physicists like Paul Langevin. Either way, it's haunted science classes and cocktail party conversations ever since. Because it doesn't feel fair. Both twins experience time normally in their own frames. So how can only one of them end up aged like a fine cheese, while the other is basically still a grape? The answer, brace yourself, is motion. More specifically, acceleration and frame switching. While both twins think they're sitting still and the other is moving, only the travelling twin undergoes acceleration and deceleration. That's what breaks the symmetry. You changed direction, you turned around, you re-entered another frame of reference. The stay-at-home twin never did. So congratulations. Physics just rewarded your twin with arthritis. You float over to the console staring at Earth's pale dot on the screen. It's no longer broadcasting news you recognise. You missed elections, revolutions, the discovery of 7 new Earth-like planets, and the banning of pineapple on pizza, finally. Your twin probably enjoyed or endured it all. It's a sobering thought, but also kind of magical. You've stepped outside of Earth's timeline. You're proof that time is not universal. It's local, personal, like your taste in reality shows. And the longer you travel, the wider the gap grows. If you turned around and headed back home now, you'd find your twin, assuming they were still alive, with laugh lines, grandkids, and maybe a robot butler. You, on the other hand, might still be wearing the same socks. There's a moment, every traveller feels it, when the paradox hits emotionally. You realise you didn't just leave people behind, you left them ahead. Everyone you knew, everyone you loved, has already moved on, grown older, maybe forgotten you, maybe remembered you as the sibling who vanished into the stars and never came back. It's lonely, sure, but it's also enlightening. You start to understand what aging really is, not just the decay of cells, but the forward march of a specific timeline. You chose a different one. You're aging less, not because you're special, but because you're moving, fast enough to make the math behave differently. There's a strange comfort in that. Or maybe it's just the recycled air messing with your serotonin levels. Here's a fun twist. There's an ancient myth in Japan about Urashima Taro, a fisherman who visits a magical undersea palace. He stays what feels like a few days. When he returns to his village, centuries have passed. His family is gone, his world is changed. And when he opens a mysterious box given to him by the sea princess, he instantly ages to match the time he missed. That story, written in the 8th century. Historians still argue whether it's just folklore or an accidental fable about relativistic aging. Probably the former, but admit it, it sounds like time dilation in a kimono. And here's a wonderfully quirky modern tidbit. NASA actually used the twin paradox as a real-world test. Astronaut Scott Kelly spent a year aboard the ISS while his identical twin, Mark Kelly, remained on Earth. When Scott returned, they studied differences in health, gene expression, even aging. The result? Microgravity and radiation had more noticeable effects than time dilation at ISS speeds. But technically, Scott aged just a tiny bit less. So yes, the twin paradox is real, even if it only shaved off milliseconds in that case. You're dealing with far bigger numbers, Back in your ship, you think about what it would be like to see your twin again, to land in a world that's moved so far beyond you, to meet someone who used to be exactly like you, but is now an old photo in motion, their face lined with memories you never shared, their voice slowed by time you didn't live. Would you even recognize each other? Maybe, maybe not. There's a term for this: differential aging. The idea that two people can live the same number of heartbeats, breaths and steps, but end up at totally different points on history's clock, all thanks to velocity. It's not fantasy, it's not exaggeration, it's simply the universe letting you mess with the rules, as long as you don't mind the consequences. There's something quietly tragic in it, sure, but also something oddly peaceful. You've traded a shared life for a longer one. Not longer in days, but in possibility. You've stretched your future thin across stars, skipping past wars and pandemics, and whatever social media platform replaced the last 5. In a way, you're timeless. And your twin, they're the anchor, the one who stayed still, who marked the years like rings in a tree. You, on the other hand, are a comet, brief, bright, and drifting ever forward. You glance at your hands, still youthful, still steady. But in a universe where age is relative, maybe that doesn't mean what it used to. There's something thrilling and a little bit smug about realizing you've become functionally a time traveler. Not with a DeLorean or a blue police box, but with the cold, pitiless math of physics and a few hundred tons of high-precision engineering. And as your velocity creeps ever closer to the speed of light, you find yourself watching time itself slow to a crawl, for you anyway. You're not quite at the cosmic speed limit yet. But let's talk about what happens as you inch even closer. At 90% the speed of light, Earth's clocks tick a little faster than yours. No biggie. Maybe they age a year for every 10 months you experience. You can still text home and get replies from people who remember your name. But push that up to 99.9%, and Earth is now aging 22 times faster than you. 1 year for you, 22 years back home. That's enough for your best friend to graduate, get married, have a couple of kids, and probably ruin their credit. Now crank it to 99.9999% of light speed. Yes, we're adding decimals like it's a high school GPA, and the time dilation goes bananas. We're talking gamma factors in the thousands. At this point, 1 hour for you could be a century on Earth, maybe more. That's right. You take a nap and miss the invention of interstellar drive-thrus and the fall of 12 governments. You, meanwhile, are still making your way through season 3 of that show you never finished. There's a phrase for this: asymptotic aging. The closer you get to light speed, the more Earth rushes ahead in time, while you remain nearly frozen, like a bookmark left in an old novel that everyone else has already finished. Here's the trick though. You can never actually reach light speed. According to special relativity, it would take infinite energy to push even the smallest particle to that speed. And unfortunately, your ship doesn't have an infinity setting on the throttle. Probably for the best, really. Infinity tends to void warranties, so instead you get infinitely close. Just a whisper beneath that limit. And as you do, the time dilation curve spikes like a roller coaster, right before it vanishes into the clouds, faster and faster, and yet never quite there. This is what some physicists jokingly call the speedometer of immortality. It's the idea that, by flying close enough to the speed of light, you could delay your own aging so dramatically that you could essentially live through vast swathes of the universe's timeline. Civilizations could rise and fall in the time it takes you to write a blog post. If you stayed at that speed long enough, you could even outlive the sun. Imagine it. You're gliding through space at 99.999999% light speed, watching entire centuries flicker past like candle flames. Stars are born and die. Earth might freeze, boil, or be replaced by a spherical mega-city full of hyper-evolved squirrel overlords. You, still wearing the same hoodie, still wondering if anyone ever found your missing left shoe. Quirky fact. In the 1960s, some physicists actually speculated about creating relativistic arc ships, vessels that would travel so close to light speed that their passengers would arrive at distant stars millions of Earth years later, while only aging a few years themselves. Basically, space Noah's Arks, but with physics instead of divine intervention. No one built one, obviously, but the math holds up. Now take a moment and imagine the ship's clock on the wall. Tick, tick, tick. Each second that passes is a universe outside aging wildly, chaotically, uncontrollably. And you're basically chilling in a lounge chair with a warm blanket and some light jazz. The universe is burning through eons. You're sipping tea. Let's pause here and appreciate just how weird that is, because it messes with how we understand aging. We usually think of aging as something your body does. Cells divide, telomeres shorten, knees crack. But in your case, biology isn't the only factor. Your experience of time, the rate at which you pass through time, is being throttled by your velocity. Your metabolism doesn't slow. Your DNA doesn't magically freeze. But since you're experiencing fewer seconds per Earth second, you still end up younger than everyone else. You might wonder, am I aging slowly, or is the rest of the universe just speeding up? And the answer is yes. Both are true, depending on your frame of reference. That's the great cosmic joke. Time is relative, and we all experience it differently depending on how we move through space. You're not broken, you're just ahead by being behind. Historians still argue whether this idea, that time itself is personal, was philosophically explored in ancient cultures. Some point to Zen koans or certain passages in the Bhagavad Gita that hint at time's elasticity. Others roll their eyes and say, no, that's a post-Einstein idea, don't be dramatic. Either way, you're living it now, literally. Meanwhile, back on Earth, well, who knows? Maybe they found a way to send you messages faster than light. They haven't. Maybe they've evolved into energy beings who think your ship is an antique. Maybe you're the last surviving human, drifting quietly through a universe that kept turning without you. And that brings us to an odd, almost poetic thought. The faster you go, the less you age. But the faster you go, the more you miss. It's a trade-off. You get time, but only if you're willing to let everyone else lose it. Your ship now hums with a new tone. You're near peak speed, where acceleration gets harder and time starts to blur at the edges of perception. Not just for Earth, but for everything. The stars you see are ancient echoes. Some may not even exist anymore. You're catching their last light as you rush past. In a way, you're aging with the universe now, slowly, patiently, distantly. You are, for lack of a better word, untethered. But don't worry, you're not immortal. You'll still reach the end of your life eventually. You'll still have regrets, cravings, naps and dreams. It'll just take a lot longer for you than for everyone else. And isn't that kind of beautiful? Einstein probably never imagined someone like you, curled up in a gravity-cushioned recliner, snacking on freeze-dried strawberries at near-light speed, casually bending time like it's made of soft taffy. But this is the future, or at least your future, and you're living proof that his ideas weren't just blackboard abstractions. They're how the universe really plays. Out here, the weirdness of physics stops being theory and becomes lifestyle. You're not just studying time dilation anymore, you're wearing it. Like a weird invisible hoodie that makes you younger by the minute. Kind of. But you're not alone out here in the math. Einstein's with you. Not literally, although, come on, that would make a great sequel. His theories are the quiet autopilot, gently managing your aging while you fly faster than reason. He's your bizarre babysitter whispering from 1905, don't worry, the universe still makes sense. Sort of. Special relativity, the theory he dropped on the world like a polite grenade, says time and space are part of the same four-dimensional reality, space-time. You move through one, you sacrifice the other. go faster in space and you go slower in time. And while the equations are elegant, their implications are casually horrifying. They rewrite what you are. For example, did you know that from your perspective it's actually the rest of the universe that's squishing and warping? Yeah. As you approach light speed, you don't just age slower, you also see distances contract. That billion-mile stretch between you and the next star, it shortens. Space itself shrinks in your direction of travel. There's a name for this: Lorentz contraction. It's like the universe is trying to meet you halfway by collapsing your to-do list, which is both polite and terrifying. Historians still argue whether Einstein realised the full emotional consequences of this stuff. Sure, he loved the math, but did he lie awake at night wondering how it would feel to watch your world age without you? Probably not. He had enough stress with that whole upending physics thing. But you get to feel it. As your ship slides faster, your view of reality starts to glitch. Light from stars ahead of you is blue shifted, crammed into shorter, higher energy wavelengths. It's not just a neat visual trick, it's dangerous. At extremely high velocities, starlight becomes gamma radiation, which means your ship's shielding is now working overtime to keep you from becoming a tragic footnote in space travel history. Meanwhile, stars behind you, they redshift, stretching into low-energy whispers. Some vanish from view entirely. You're not just moving fast, you're dragging your frame of reference behind you like a cloak, distorting everything you look at. This is what makes near-light speed travel so weird. From your perspective, everything else is broken. The universe rushes toward you, compressed and chaotic. But you feel normal, calm, like you're standing still in a world that won't stop running. It's a deeply unsettling sensation, like when your phone lags but your brain doesn't. And here's a lesser-known quirky twist. Some researchers once proposed that if you could accelerate gradually enough, you'd never feel the change. To you, it would feel like a gentle, constant gravity pressing you backward, like being on an old roller coaster that never stops climbing. You wouldn't notice when Earth's years started slipping by in seconds. It would happen in silence, like sand falling through an hourglass on mute. You are, in a way, now governed by proper time, a fancy way of saying time experienced by you personally. Everyone else, from your friends on Earth to the hypothetical aliens running intergalactic podcasts, is on coordinate time, external, relative, and accelerating past you. And the two clocks? They're no longer speaking to each other. Imagine trying to schedule a Zoom call between someone on Earth and you, halfway to Alpha Centauri at 99.9999% light speed. You'd both think you picked the same time, but your calendars are now separated by decades of relativistic drift. And the meeting invite? Probably expired 200 years ago. Back in your ship, your body carries on like nothing's happened. Your cells divide, your thoughts wander, you blink, yawn, check a panel, think about toast for no reason. You are, quite literally, a biological paradox in motion. It's tempting to feel smug. You're not aging, you're cheating death. You've solved the problem of mortality with nothing more than relentless velocity and some fancy shielding. And yet, something nags at you. Because even if you return to Earth one day, assuming it's still there, you'll find a planet that's moved on. Your time-saving trick has a cost: disconnection. You don't just skip birthdays, you skip generations, you skip cultural moments. Music changes, languages evolve, inside jokes die horrible, misunderstood deaths. You'll come back, young and fresh, into a world that doesn't remember what you left behind. Maybe they'll greet you like a legend. Maybe they'll treat you like a museum exhibit. Or maybe no one will care, because 100 years is a long time to forget someone who left with a backpack and a dream. That's the quiet shadow of relativistic travel. The math is precise, the physics is beautiful. But the human part? That gets fuzzy. We weren't meant to outrun time. at least not without consequences. Still, as Einstein would probably remind you, time isn't broken. It's just not universal. It's like language or fashion. Each of us has our own version. Yours just happens to come with a light-speed fringe and a side of existential dread. And as your ship glides further into the vacuum, deeper into the dilation zone where seconds last forever and distance collapses inward, you realise something else. You're not slowing down, not aging, not sinking. You're slipping out of the timeline you were born into and sliding into another, a quieter one, a slower one, a longer one. You're still you, just a version that time forgot to chase. So, how old are you now? You glance at the display on your wrist, the same one you wore when you launched. It says you've been in flight for 5 years. You still feel young, sharp, even a bit smug about your vitamin levels. You've completed crossword puzzles, binge-watched dusty old documentaries from the early 2000s, and watched the same nebula drift by for what feels like a month. But Earth? Earth thinks you've been gone for 80 years. And that's not just a dramatic flourish, that's the math. Your 5th birthday in space has just passed. Your ship's cake printer even managed a lopsided cupcake in low gravity. Frosting optional, candles extremely not recommended. You celebrate alone, humming a tune that nobody else knows anymore. You make a wish. You blow at nothing. The gesture feels symbolic. Back on Earth, if it's still Earth-shaped and not a corporate-branded orbital theme park by now, entire civilizations have come and gone. A child born the day you left is now a grandparent, or a hologram, depending on how history played out. And here you are, no wrinkles, no grey, and somehow still getting ads for shoes you bought in 2023. This is the uncomfortable reality of relativistic travel. Your birthday is a lie. Not because you haven't aged. You have, biologically. 5 Earth years worth of metabolism, thoughts, cells doing their quiet business. But your place in the universe's timeline has been radically rearranged. You're the same age in your body, but staggeringly out of sync with everyone else. Now, we need to talk about something called proper time again. It's what your wristwatch measures. It's the time you personally experience regardless of what anyone else thinks the date is. It doesn't care that your sister is 104 and you're barely pushing 30. Your body just knows what it knows. So when you light your synthetic birthday candle, it's real to you. But to the universe, you're a relic from the past still floating forward. It feels surreal, doesn't it? Celebrating something that technically happened 80 times already. Somewhere on a decaying social network there might be a post. Can't believe it's been 80 years since they launched. Wonder if they ever made it. Maybe with a picture of you looking awkward in your launch suit mid-thumbs up. Historians still argue whether early science fiction writers like H.G. Wells grasped the full weirdness of this phenomenon. In The Time Machine, Wells' traveller jumps forward in time, but he's stationary, using a literal device. The true twist of relativistic travel is that you don't need a machine with spinning gears. You just need speed and patience. And once you start moving fast enough, you're not just going through time, you're choosing a different rate of time entirely. The slow lane, but for your personal clock. The weirdest part? From your point of view, Earth is the one acting strange. You're the consistent one. You haven't changed your speed, your ship hasn't warped, your days still have rhythm. It's the world behind you that accelerated, blurring through decades like someone leaning on a fast-forward button. This disconnect gets emotional fast. You start to miss things that haven't even finished happening yet. The wedding you weren't around for. The second season of that show that took 70 years to film because of some absurd production delays. The history you didn't get to live. You begin to wonder, did people keep celebrating your birthday back home? Did they hold on to hope that you'd return? Or did you become a trivia question, the answer to who was that astronaut who left and never came back? Here's a quirky anecdote. In the 1980s, some futurists predicted that relativistic astronauts would need to legally redefine birthdays, since their biological age would no longer align with the calendars of their origin planet. Imagine getting a notification. Happy 96th Earth birthday. Your body is 29. Please contact Galactic HR to update your age profile. Bureaucracy doesn't stop for physics, and yet your body doesn't care about Earth birthdays. It tracks the flow of seconds, not centuries. It's unaware that humanity has invented 3 new calendar systems and moved New Year's to September because it just vibes better. Inside your ship, the rituals remain. You light a candle, you hum, you eat a very questionable space snack. You think about what's behind you, not physically, but temporally. And here's something philosophical. You've become your own calendar. Your time is no longer part of the shared experience of Earth. You don't have weekends. There's no more rush hour unless the ship's T-machine malfunctions again. There are no holidays unless you remember to program them in. You're outside the collective rhythm of humanity, dancing to a tempo only you can hear. You've stepped into a space where time is solitary, not in a lonely way. Okay, sometimes in a lonely way, but in a strange monastic sense. Every second is yours, no one else's. And here's the thing that keeps you up at whatever time you call night now. If you ever go back, if your engines flip and you decelerate, if you swing around and point your nose homeward, you'll return as a temporal refugee. Your 5th birthday may have passed, but when you land, they'll hand you a centennial commemorative coin and an uncomfortable number of balloons. You won't know the slang, you won't understand the politics, you'll need a translator just to order coffee. So maybe in a way this birthday of yours isn't just a number. Maybe it's a pause, a moment to recognise what you've become. Not just older, not just faster, but other. A traveller on a one-way trail where time is elastic and memory is fragile. You sit there a while, the cupcake half eaten. You look out at the stars that haven't changed in your view, even as the universe races by outside. And somewhere far behind, someone blows out 100 candles and remembers you. You wake up to a quiet ping from the ship's internal clock. Nothing dramatic, just a gentle reminder that something has changed. And no, it's not your vitamin schedule, though those tablets definitely taste like sadness compressed into pill form. It's the clocks. Again. More specifically, the clocks outside your ship, the ones on Earth. They're wrong. Well, technically they're right for them. But from your perspective, they're moving at breakneck speed. You check the signal logs from the Earth-based atomic clock network, assuming they're still operating, and realise the timestamps are galloping forward. Days, weeks, months vanish in a blink. It's like watching someone else fast forward through their life while you're stuck in a particularly slow-loading YouTube video. Inside your ship, the seconds still behave themselves. You stretch, yawn, tap your wrist display, sip your recycled tea. Your body's rhythms continue untouched, but Earth's time, it's slipping away, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to hold it back. Welcome to the war between onboard clocks and Earth's regret. This conflict, peaceful but profoundly unnerving, is one of the defining features of time dilation. You are the captain of a ship that's not just slicing through space but slipping through slices of time, and those slices aren't equal. Here's a mental image. Imagine you and Earth both have hourglasses. Yours trickles 1 grain of sand at a time, gently, methodically. Earth's, on the other hand, has had its glass smashed with a hammer and is just pouring sand onto the floor in a chaotic heap. You both started at the same moment, but now you're in 2 totally different futures. This is the part of relativity that feels the most personal. Historians still argue whether our ancestors had any instinct for this discrepancy. Some ancient calendars seem to drift over time, lunar months mismatching solar years, sacred festivals slowly shifting seasons. Some scholars believe they sense that time wasn't uniform, even if they couldn't quantify it. Others argue it was just bad math and cloudy skies. Either way, they probably didn't expect the day we'd be comparing atomic clock ticks while zipping through the Kuiper belt. And yet, here you are. There's a deep irony to it all. You left Earth to see more, to stretch your life across the stars, to experience the cosmos firsthand. But the faster you go, the less of everyone else's time you get to keep. You've traded their tomorrows for your todays. Here's the hard science of it. On board your ship, proper time is passing normally. Your wristwatch says Wednesday, and your internal organs agree. But from Earth's point of view, your coordinate time is slowed way down. So while your clock ticks once, theirs might tick 10, 100, 1,000 times, depending on your velocity. Which means the moment you say, "I'll be right back," Earth hears, "See you in a few lifetimes." It's like living inside a perfectly preserved museum exhibit while everyone else ages outside the glass. You haven't aged a day in their eyes, but they've aged, and then some. You lean toward the display panel. Earth's signal is still coming through, a steady pulse of radio chatter, automated data dumps, probably some very outdated memes. But your ship has to buffer these signals, time smoothing them like a very confused DJ. The messages arrive out of sync, with timestamp gaps that scream of the time that's racing ahead without you. One particularly gut-punch moment. A voice message left for you, clearly recorded just after your launch. "Hope your mission's going well," someone says. "We're all fine here, don't be a stranger." You play it again. Then you realise, on Earth, that person is probably gone now. Not in a dramatic way, just aged, moved on. You left at 28. They were 30. Now they'd be 110 or 130. Unless medical science got weirdly ambitious, they're just a line in a family tree now. You reach for another message, a news bulletin, automated. It announces the construction of the third orbital ring around Earth, then later the fourth. At this point, Earth might look more like Saturn than anything else. You missed that. You missed all of it. And that's when it hits you. Really hits you. You didn't just miss birthdays. You missed eras. The difference between your ship's time and Earth's time isn't a scheduling inconvenience. It's a philosophical divorce. You can't return to what you left behind. Even if you reversed your engines right now, plotted a path back home, and arrived in what felt like months, Earth would be so far ahead, so altered, you'd need a crash course in modern everything. Or postmodern, or neo-modern, depending on how much civilization has overachieved in your absence. And here's a quirky detail to underline all this weirdness. In 2010, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, demonstrated that even standing 1 foot higher in elevation, just a single foot, meant your clock ticks slightly faster than someone's on the ground. That's right. Clocks tick differently depending on altitude thanks to gravitational time dilation. Now imagine the clock difference between you, hurtling through deep space at relativistic speeds, and someone sipping coffee on Earth's surface. It's not a question of minutes, it's lifetimes. And still, from your vantage point inside the ship, you feel nothing. No tingling, no dramatic shift, just the steady rhythm of internal time. You are the same you who left, but your context has dissolved. You've become a relic of a different clock, a living mismatch. So you sit back, you breathe, you look out at the stars. Maybe you whisper something to yourself like, "Well, that escalated slowly." Because that's the thing. From your point of view, everything is slow. Earth is aging quickly, but your perception of events is calm, stretched, silent. It's like walking through snow while watching a time-lapse of traffic on a freeway. Their world is sprinting, yours is drifting, and as you continue forward, into deeper space, into longer delays, into slower personal time, you wonder how much longer you'll be able to understand anything coming from Earth at all. Not the language, not the references, not the world view. The gap keeps growing, like a crack in the windshield of a timeline. Eventually, it won't just be that you've aged differently. It'll be that you're living in a different reality altogether. At first, you think the system's glitched. You're just waking up from a nap, 6 hours, nothing fancy. And as you stretch and blink at the display, something doesn't add up. The star chart looks the same. The hum of the engines is still low and steady, but your calendars flip to a date that shouldn't be possible. Back on Earth, 1,000 years have passed. You rub your eyes, check the diagnostics, check them again. But the numbers are steady, consistent, confirmed. According to Earth's time-stamped telemetry, your little snooze just skipped you past the reigns of 5 governments, 2 language families, and 1 very brief global empire based on memes. You slept through a millennium. This is time dilation at its most outrageous, when the numbers stop being theoretical and start becoming absurd. You weren't unconscious in the classic sense, just napping. Ship time says 6 hours. Body agrees. But Earth has aged itself right off the timeline. This isn't a dream. This is just relativity, weaponized. Here's a metaphor for how bad it's gotten. Imagine setting your phone down to charge, and by the time you pick it up, the entire planet has changed seasons, continents, and musical tastes. That's where you're at now. 1 nap, 1,000 Earth years. And the wild part? You knew this was coming. You read the math. You'd gone through the simulations. Heck, you probably signed a few disclaimers. But nothing, not even training, prepares you for the emotional slap of realizing everything you once knew is ancient history now. You haven't just missed events. You've missed contexts, missed inventions, missed whole species, probably. You don't even know if Earth is still wet and blue, or if it's been terraformed into a giant data center orbiting a neutron star. The only clues you have come in faint, auto-updating news packets, each more bewildering than the last. Historians still argue whether any civilization could ever truly plan for this kind of future shock. Even if humanity expected relativistic travelers to return, would they know how to greet them? Or would they be treated like museum pieces? Or myths? Because that's what you are now, a myth that hasn't happened yet. And this isn't even your ship's top speed. You haven't hit max dilation yet. You're still accelerating, slowly, carefully, steadily, toward that dreamlike edge of 0.9999999 C. But even this lower level is enough to cause chronological whiplash. You rise from your chair, your joints feel fine, you check your pulse, everything normal. Except for the part where humanity is now probably speaking in tonal pulses and measuring time in exponents. You tap into Earth's auto-message buffer again, if only for the morbid curiosity. Most of the messages are just data reports now, neural translations, news from orbital colonies, a list of planets you've never heard of with names that look more like equations than words. Someone has named a moon after you. You assume that's flattering. You're still listed as in flight. They haven't declared you lost, but it's clear they don't expect you to come back. To them, you've become one of the ancients, a traveller from a more innocent time when people still listened to music made by humans and considered internet access a thing that needed logging in. You're shocked at how calmly your brain accepts all this. Maybe it's the ship's ambient stress regulator. Or maybe you just passed the point where your sense of belonging to Earth stopped making sense. You don't live in the 21st century anymore. You haven't for a while. You live in intervals, in bursts of shipboard life, simple, linear, personal, separated by great gulfs of Earth time. You're a stone skipping across the surface of a river. Every time you touch down, the water is different. New fish, new currents, new rules. So let's pause here for a moment of light existential dread. You're not immortal. You're not suspended in cryo. You're just a meat-based organism moving so fast that time can't keep up with you. Your cells still age, your neurons still fire, but your velocity has warped the timeline around you so profoundly that you now live in slow motion relative to the rest of the universe. And that makes you a kind of chronological ghost. Not dead, not gone, just lagging. You're the opposite of a haunting. You're the person who shows up after the grave has gone cold, a living remnant of a world no one remembers. Here's a deliciously bizarre fringe theory that's popped up in this context. Some physicists, not mainstream ones mind you, have suggested that relativistic travellers like you might be seen as immortals by slower moving civilizations. From their perspective, you appear in the historical record, then vanish, then reappear generations later looking the same, like a god or a glitch. Of course, you're just someone trying to finish a cup of tea in peace. Still, it gives you pause. What kind of myths have they built around you? What stories do they tell their kids about the traveller in the black ship who appears every few thousand years? Do they think you're here to observe, to judge, to save them? You don't even know where you put your socks last week, and the gap is growing. Not just the time gap, but the meaning gap. The further forward Earth races, the harder it will be to understand them, culturally, linguistically, even physically. Evolution is still happening. Climate, gene editing, artificial augmentation. Who knows what a human even is now? You feel your place in the story slipping, and still you drift. The stars blur by. Space remains mercifully unchanged. It doesn't judge, it doesn't evolve. It just stretches on, silent, cold, and entirely indifferent to your little time problem. You sit in silence for a while, just breathing, just existing in your slow little moment. Because that's all you have now. 1,000 years just passed outside, but here it's only been 6 hours. You finally slow down. Not all the way, but just enough to notice the difference. The engines begin a low, sustained deceleration burn, barely perceptible at first. Inside the ship, everything continues to feel the same. The gravity field stays stable, your tea doesn't float away, and your internal clock doesn't hiccup. But out there, time begins to settle. You're dropping below that razor-thin edge of ultra-relativistic speed, back down to 99.99% the speed of light, then 99.9%, still absurdly fast, yes, but just slow enough for the universe to start syncing with you again, sort of. And suddenly you feel old. Not in your bones, not in your cells, in your context. You feel old because after all that time moving faster than the universe could keep up with, you're now in the slow lane, and that's when the asymmetry hits. Because you've been coasting through space, skipping across time, dodging centuries with a well-timed nap. But now, as your speed drops, time around you slows down too. From your perspective, yes, but more importantly, it starts catching up with you. The stream you've been gliding above now rises up to meet you, and it is roaring. Messages from Earth come through less frantically. They're not centuries apart anymore, just years, then months, eventually weeks. That's your first clue that something is changing, and the real kicker, you haven't aged a second faster, but everything else has caught up. You've stepped out of your time bubble, and even though you still feel like that slightly sarcastic 20 or 30-something in space pajamas, the universe looks at you like a time capsule. Like a VHS tape someone just pulled out of a drawer marked "Do not watch unless desperate." You're not aging faster now, you're just no longer outpacing everyone else's aging. It's a strange reversal. You feel like you're slowing down, but really, you're just becoming visible to the rest of time again. And that's when you start to get the messages, the ones that make you blink. Some are curious, some are clinical, some are downright emotional. Is it really you? We've studied your launch logs for centuries. Welcome back, Ghost. Historians still argue whether our psychological frameworks can handle this kind of time distortion. If someone can see themselves as young while being told they're from an era long vanished, do they stay sane? Do they adapt? Or do they shatter under the pressure of dislocation? You, so far, are doing okay, but it's weird. Deeply weird. You scroll through news briefings, political systems you've never heard of, religions that formed, flourished and fractured while you were playing Sudoku at relativistic speed. styles you can't comprehend, music that sounds like it was written by planetary weather systems. Someone has apparently brought back socks and sandals, and not even ironically. You're officially out of style and out of sync, and here's the uncomfortable twist. You're not special anymore. At full relativistic velocity, you are an outlier, a miracle, a glitch in time's matrix. But now, you've re-entered the playing field. Time is dragging you back into the main thread of the universe's narrative, and it's not as fun as you expected. The crew, or rather the AI formerly known as crew, updates you on status reports. Your vitals, still pristine. Muscle tone, maintained. Bone density, excellent, thanks to the ship's gravity algorithms. You're the same. But everything and everyone else is older, wiser, sadder, weirder. You don't belong anymore. You're not timeless. You're just late. Even your ship looks outdated now. Messages from Earth suggest new technologies, better engines, instantaneous data relays, but only under certain conditions. Physics still has boundaries, thankfully. And here you are, in a steel can that's now considered retro-futurist. One Earth commentator describes your ship as an elegant fossil. You'd be offended, but you kind of agree. So now what? You float in this strange middle zone. You're too fast to ever fully integrate again, but too slow to stay removed. You're in a liminal state, 1 foot in their future, 1 foot in your past. It's like coming back to your hometown after 50 years and realizing the movie theater is now a drone farm, and your favorite coffee shop serves memory-based beverages designed to taste like nostalgia. It's not home. It's a simulation of what home might have become. You think back to the earlier days of your journey, when you first realized time was slipping. It felt novel then. Cool. Like being a space-time rebel. You were aging slower than the universe, untouchable, almost smug. But now that you've dropped back into the stream, even just a little, it all catches up with you. Not biologically, but emotionally. You feel grief for a world that moved on without you. Guilt, maybe, for being the one who escaped. A sense of cultural vertigo, like walking into a conversation that started centuries before you arrived and is somehow still going, but in a dialect you no longer speak. You're not old, you're just misaligned. Here's a quirky historical comparison. There's a true story about an early Arctic explorer who spent so long cut off from the outside world that by the time he returned, World War I had started. He had no idea. He arrived home thinking the world was as he left it, and found nothing but headlines, flags and graves. Now scale that up by several orders of magnitude, and that's what you're living through now. Even space itself seems less familiar. Star maps have shifted. Some constellations no longer exist, burned out, moved, distorted by galactic motion. You're looking at a sky drawn in the language of an era you never lived. And worst of all, you start to realize the further you decelerate, the faster you'll age again. You can't live forever at this speed. If you stop, if you dock at one of these orbital way stations, if you walk on a planet again, you'll be back in their time, subject to their seconds, their minutes, their years. You'll start aging normally. And after all this time, that's terrifying. Not because aging is bad, but because it means you'll finally have to pay the debt of time you skipped. You can't cheat forever. Sooner or later, the slow lane ends, and it leads right back into reality. You float in the silence, watching the stars hold their positions a little too precisely. That's the first giveaway that you're no longer hurtling through space at the insane speeds you'd grown used to. Everything looks still, uncomfortably still. Your ship has slowed. Time, or at least the way other people experience it, has come back for you. It doesn't knock, it just walks in and makes itself at home. You've returned to the stream, you've rejoined the narrative, but this isn't your story anymore. Now comes the strangest, heaviest part of the entire relativistic journey: re-entry. No, not into an atmosphere, into a timeline. You're heading back to Earth, or what's left of it. Back to a planet that may still orbit the same star, but no longer orbits the same ideas, values, or people you knew. You send a ping to planetary systems and the reply arrives almost instantly, because now you're slow. Now you're close. No more watching centuries go by between signals. You're back in a world where lag is measured in seconds, not centuries. It should feel like a relief, but instead, it feels like a trap. The messages come with data packets, population statistics, updates on atmosphere composition, approved landing zones, cultural briefings in case you've missed anything, which, let's be honest, you absolutely have. There's even a recommended expressions and gestures file. You skim it. Apparently shrugging is offensive now, and eye contact has been replaced by gently blinking twice to indicate acknowledgement. You blink once, then again. Might as well start practicing. The truth settles in your stomach like a meteorite. You are the stranger now. Back on Earth, if they even still call it that, entire generations have lived, struggled, evolved, and died. They've built monuments, maybe to you, maybe to others, or maybe they just forgot. You might be a curiosity in their textbooks, a paragraph in their equivalent of weird historical footnotes. You're finally going home, but it's not home anymore. You swipe through the notable events since departure file. It takes a while. At one point the ship gently suggests, "Would you like a summary instead?" You ignore it. You need to see it all. The collapses, the renaissances, the alien contact that might have been a hoax, the fact that cats apparently now own property. Time has not only passed, it has gotten weird. You check your vitals again. Still pristine. You're the same person who launched so long ago, chronologically, biologically, mentally, but socially. You're a fossil with a pulse. You try to imagine what people will see when you step out of your ship. Not a hero, not a pioneer, a ghost, an echo from a forgotten century. It gets darker emotionally the closer you get. The ship enters orbital range. You begin atmospheric prep. There's a notification that a ceremonial delegation will greet you on landing. All part of the reintegration protocol, it says, as if you're a returning laptop from IT storage. They've sent a psychomotion package for your re-entry. You skim it half-heartedly. It mentions common symptoms for temporal displacement returnees: disorientation, grief, false memories, loneliness, identity fracture. You check every box. There's no class for what you're about to do. No guidebook that explains how to rejoin a world that had your funeral 2 centuries ago. The ship eases into descent mode, slow and steady. Earth, or New Earth, or Terra V, or whatever it's called now, grows larger in the window. Clouds curl across vast oceans. Continents shimmer with strange new cityscapes. It looks familiar, but only like something you'd seen in a dream once. You remember the first time you launched, back when Earth was messy and loud and full of unfinished arguments, when you could still call someone and know they'd pick up, when birthdays meant cake, not quantum corrections. And now, you're returning to a place that doesn't know you. Your inbox pings again. It's a personal message this time, from a group called the Children of the Traveller. You hesitate, then open it. They thank you, not because of what you've done, just because you existed. Your journey apparently became a sort of myth, a living reminder of human reach, ambition, and loneliness. They don't expect you to know the world they live in. They just want you to know you were remembered. You sit with that for a long time, because that's the irony, isn't it? You set out to outrun time, and now all you want is to be remembered within it. Historians still argue whether any relativistic traveller could ever truly come home again. Some say yes, culture adapts, and humans are resilient. Others insist it's impossible, that once you've stepped outside of time, you can't step back in, not without breaking something. You're about to find out. The ship begins final descent. The clouds blur past. You catch a glimpse of a massive vertical city, stretching like a needle into the sky. You think you see forests suspended in mid-air, roads that curve in ways that defy Newton. Everything is new. Everything is ahead of you. You're no longer ahead of time. You're behind. And the strangest part? You're about to start aging normally again. Every second will now matter. Every breath, every blink of greeting. You once had centuries to waste. Now, it's all precious. Welcome back to the stream. The landing is smooth, almost insultingly so. After everything you've been through, the centuries skipped, the timeline severed, the emotional Sudoku of aging slower than everyone you've ever known, you were expecting something more dramatic. Fire, applause, a momentous creak as your ship's landing gear meets ground that's evolved past concrete. Instead, the platform locks in with a polite hiss. "Welcome, traveller," says a voice, smooth, neutral, definitely not human, maybe post-human. It echoes through your comms with a gentle cadence of someone reading bedtime stories to quantum computers, and just like that you've arrived, not in your time, but in theirs. You take your first step onto solid Earth, if it's still called Earth, and immediately realise something's off. The air is breathable, sure, the gravity matches your memory, but the people? The people are almost unrecognisable. They're tall, not freakishly so, but long-limbed in a way that suggests either some very committed yoga or generations of low-gravity life. Their eyes shimmer faintly, as if tuned to broader spectrums. Their clothing flows and pulses, not fabric, but some kind of reactive biotech textile that changes with their movement. And none of them speaks with their mouth, not a word. They greet you with a soft double blink, just like the guide said. You hesitate, then blink twice in return. Congratulations, you've just passed your first social test in a civilization 1,000 years ahead of you. One small blink for you, one massive sigh of relief for public relations. You walk down a corridor flanked by greenery that hums softly. Either the plants here are genetically engineered to resonate, or someone decided sound design should apply to ferns. You're not sure whether you're inside a building or inside a habitat, because the ceiling simulates a sky but occasionally glitches into star patterns. And that's when you realise this place doesn't resemble Earth. It replaced Earth. All your ideas about home were anchored to a world that no longer exists. Streets, cities, cars, awkward social interactions, gone. People don't hold devices here. They interface through gestures, neural links, and apparently stylish earlobe implants. You're the only person in the room wearing laces. You are, in every sense, an alien on your own planet. A child approaches. At least you think it's a child. Smaller frame, curious eyes, a kind of controlled exuberance in their steps. They walk up to you and smile, not with their mouth again, but with their face, like a soft flicker of expression in the cheeks and eyes. "Is it really you?" they ask, but the voice comes through your wristband, translated instantly. You nod. They laugh. "My teacher said you'd come back. She said you'd be confused." You manage a smile, though you're not sure if facial expressions are still socially appropriate. You look around. Everyone else watches you with reverent detachment, not standoffish, just like they're trying not to spook the ghost. You realise that to them you're living history, not a person, a phenomenon. You keep walking. The architecture is smooth, modular, and seems to react to your movements, walls shifting subtly to guide you. No doors, no signs, no corners. The space unfolds around you like it's been programmed to make you feel less lost, which is both thoughtful and deeply unsettling. Eventually you reach what they call the Hall of Context. It's not a museum, it's a memory engine, and it's here to help you catch up. "Please stand in the circle," the guide says. Again, through your band, you step in. Instantly light surrounds you, not blinding, warm, Shapes form in the air, moments, maps, languages you don't know, events you never lived, all condensed into pulses of sensory input tailored to your mind's capacity. You feel like you're dreaming in fast forward. And then you see yourself, old footage, blurry launch day videos, news reports, simulations. For 1,000 years, people have been watching you move through time. You're a myth they watched form in real time. You see school children pretending to be the traveller in what looks like a dance performance. You see an opera titled 1 Second Forward. You see someone wearing a Halloween costume that looks suspiciously like your old jumpsuit, only with more glitter. You see art, statues. Some of them are very generous with a jawline. You laugh. Historians still argue whether any real historical figure has ever returned from their own legacy to confront it face to face. You've just become your own museum exhibit, standing in the middle of an interactive timeline that calls you both the sleeper and the one who glided past time. It's flattering, it's humbling, it's also completely disorienting. And you wonder, quietly, how much of you is left? Are you still the person who launched all those subjective years ago? Or has that version of you been eroded by centuries of silence, distance, and dislocation? You ask the guide, telepathically somehow, what happens now? The reply is instantaneous, whatever you like. Because that's the thing about returning to a future this far ahead. No one can tell you what to do. You're outside their laws, above their expectations. You're an artifact, but you're also alive. There's no protocol for integrating a person who has experienced 5 years while everyone else experienced 1,000. You could live in seclusion, in comfort, in obscurity, or you could become something else entirely, a liaison between eras, a teacher, a traveller still. You think about getting back on the ship, about accelerating again, finding a colony ship to follow, outrunning this timeline too, but a part of you wants to stay, to watch people live again, to experience time, not just dodge it. You're not afraid of aging anymore, you're afraid of missing life. And somewhere in that strange, pulsing hall of context, you find a seat. It's not a chair, really. It molds itself to your weight. You close your eyes, you breathe, and for the first time in what might as well be eternity, you just let time pass. 1 second, then another, and another. It takes time, ironically, for you to realise you're not broken. The first few days, weeks, however they measure time here, are a blur. You walk among them, these polished descendants of a world you left behind, and you try not to flinch when the gravity ever so slightly shifts to accommodate passing crowds. You flub your double blinks. You try to smile when someone greets you using tones rather than words. You're not doing badly, but you feel like a tourist in your own home. The weirdest part? They treat you gently, carefully, like a snowflake in a kiln. You get the sense they think you might shatter at any moment. And to be fair, maybe you will. Because no matter how calm your body feels, your mind is disoriented. You're struggling to graft yourself onto a culture that's not only alien, but built on the ashes of your own. Every monument here, every social norm, every piece of art seems to carry the quiet weight of time you should have lived but didn't. They offer you neural acclimation therapy, light brainwaves syncing to help you adjust to modern rhythms of thought. You decline at first, then you cave, out of curiosity more than desperation, and for a moment you actually feel like you belong. You understand their humour, you grasp the social nuance, you finally double blink with confidence. But when the session ends, you realise something chilling. It was temporary. Your mind snaps back to its old configuration like an elastic band. You remember the past too vividly. You remember names no one here recognises. You hum songs that never made it past 2099. You remember commercials, morning routines, feeling cold and needing socks. They don't wear socks anymore. They have temperature-regulating footwear made of woven bacteria that sing to your ankles. Still, you're adapting, slowly, reluctantly. You take walks, a lot of them. There are parks here, though they float several meters above ground on anti-seismic platforms and feature trees that were never on Earth before, broad-leafed bioluminescent things that shed their colour like dandelions every night and regrow it in the morning. You sit beneath one watching a child, again, you think it's a child, levitate a small orb between their palms. It's not telekinesis, just embedded tech. But they do it so casually it's clear they were raised in a world where the laws of physics are more of a suggestion than a rule. You used to wonder if you'd ever see a future this wild. Now you are the past, sitting in the middle of it. Here's a strange little tidbit they tell you over a cup of synthesized coffee, still awful by the way. During your flight, time dilation became so well understood that it was used deliberately, not just for travel, but for political exile. Criminals, dissidents, even terminal patients were offered relativistic voyages as an alternative to prison or death. Travel near light speed for a year, and the world changes enough that your sentence becomes irrelevant. You return to a future where your crime, or your diagnosis, is already forgotten. Historians still argue whether that was justice or just fancy avoidance. You realise something mid-sip. You didn't flee the world. You outran its consequences, not by intention but by velocity. And now that you're back, those consequences are gone, irrelevant. No one here cares what you did, what you meant to people, what you left unsaid. There's no one alive who remembers. You're free. Utterly, painfully free. That's what makes it so hard to decide what to do next. They offer you roles, of course. Legacy liaison, chronocultural consultant. Someone even suggests you run for office, which is hilarious until you realise they're serious. You're a symbol now. You represent the long arc of human tenacity, even if all you did was sit in a fast metal tube and try not to spill your tea. You think about accepting. You even start composing a speech in your head, something humble, inspiring. Maybe you'd start with, "When I left Earth, we still argued about pineapple on pizza. They don't have pizza anymore, it's now savoury discs, and it's okay." But the more you interact with this world, the more you feel like a stranger peeking through a keyhole. You understand the shape of things, but the soul, the spark, it still eludes you. So one day you ask the question that's been quietly humming in the back of your mind. Can I leave again? The reply is cautious, measured. You can, but we don't recommend it. Why not? They blink at you, because the next jump will likely be your last. You don't ask what that means, you already know. The further you go, the more the world will change. Eventually you'll leap so far ahead that there will be no one left to interpret it for you. No one to welcome you back, no one to care. You'll outlive meaning itself. And yet, the ship still works. They maintained it, kept it in orbit, preserved like a temple artifact. It's fueled, prepped, waiting, just in case you couldn't handle this. Or maybe, just in case this couldn't handle you. You spend the night staring at the sky. It's still a sky. Blue, for now. The constellations are wrong, of course. Orion's missing a shoulder. The North Star has moved. But there's still that old cosmic glitter overhead, reminding you that motion is the only constant. And here's the kicker. Now that you're back in regular time, you're aging again. Slowly, properly, fully. There's a line on your face that wasn't there when you landed. Maybe you're just imagining it. Maybe not. Either way, time has its hands on you again, and this time, it's not letting go. And weirdly, you're okay with that. You missed this, the tick, the forward motion, the sense that moments matter again. Because aging, with all its flaws and betrayals, is a signal that you're part of the world. No longer the outsider, no longer the stowaway on a ship made of math. You're back in the stream, and this time you're going to let carry you. They ask you to speak at a gathering. Not a formal speech, not a podium and applause type of affair. Those apparently went extinct a few centuries ago. Right around the same time, someone decided chairs were obsolete, and everyone should float at ergonomic height zones. No, This is more like a collective memory sharing, a quiet event where people gather in a neural garden and listen to moments downloaded directly from your sensory archive. You didn't know you had a sensory archive. Turns out the ship was logging everything. Sights, sounds, impressions, dreams, even the way your spine tensed during certain starlight alignments. Nothing invasive, just passive observation, for historical preservation, they said. Of course. You sit in the garden now, surrounded by trees that respond to emotion, subtle waves of blue-green pulsing through their leaves as the crowd leans in. There's no stage, no lights, just people, some flesh and blood, some entirely synthetic, all tuned into the frequency of you. You begin to speak, not with words, but with moments. The taste of the first recycled coffee packet, the hiss of the engine during the first thrust past Mars, the creeping realization that birthdays had become meaningless, the sting of hearing a voice recording from someone who'd long since died, the ache of re-entry, not physical but temporal. You let them feel what it was like to be forgotten and remembered at the same time, and they listen, completely, without judgment, without rush. Somewhere in the back of the garden you see a cluster of children, or again, you assume they're children. They're floating a few inches off the ground, blinking their double blinks in sync. One of them is crying softly, not because they're sad, just because they finally understand something they'd only read about in story chips. You, the traveller, not just the one who left, the one who came back. Afterwards, someone hands you a strange fruit. It glows faintly and smells like nostalgia. You're not sure how to eat it, but your body knows. It tastes like Earth, your Earth somehow, a small mercy from the science of memory cuisine. Later you return to the dwelling they assigned you. It's simple, fluid. The walls breathe slightly. The temperature never needs adjusting. Your bed understands when you want to be held and when you want to be alone. You sit on the edge of it and realise something. You're tired. Not physically. You've never felt better in that unnervingly perfect post-human healthcare kind of way. But there's a heaviness now, not from motion, but from stillness. You've slowed, you've stayed, and time is finally touching you again. You step into the bathing chamber. It's not water, it's light and warmth, and something like the sensation of being forgiven. You stand there until your thoughts soften, and then you lie down, not just to rest, to finally sleep. No cryo, no drift nap, no relativistic time dodge, just an honest, Earth-standard, circadian-aligned sleep. You close your eyes, and for the first time in 1,000 years of everyone else's experience, you let yourself sink fully into the passage of unfiltered time. No calculations, no escape trajectory, and no math, just sleep. You dream of old things, of sidewalks underfoot, of hands that once held yours, of coffee that was too hot and news that was too grim. You dream of a cat you had once, the way it used to judge you from the windowsill. You dream of not being lost, and the dream stretches out warm and slow and without edges, because that's what time is now, something that wraps around you instead of rushing past, something you're inside again, not running from. And maybe, just maybe, this is the final realization. You didn't come back to your world, you came back to time itself, and time, in its strange and silent way, has welcomed you. Softly, without fanfare, like a blanket drawn over your shoulders, like the weight of gravity, finally pulling you back home. You roll over. The dwelling senses your shift and dims the room to perfect darkness. The air hums just enough to be soothing, like a fan that's been spinning for 1,000 years, waiting for you. Your breathing slows. The lights in the sky outside your window twinkle, not from distance, not from distortion, but from real, atmospheric shimmer. You're back on Earth, and the stars are still there. Still watching, still waiting. You close your eyes, and for now, nothing more is required of you. Not speed, not answers, just rest, just peace, just the quiet satisfaction of letting time finally pass at the same pace as your heart. The silence stretches, long and luxurious, until a gentle vibration hums through the floor beneath your bed. It's not loud, just enough to nudge you awake without urgency. The dwelling knows not to rush you. It offers warmth, a soft upward tilt of the mattress, and a faint sound. Birds, maybe? Synthetic, sure, but still comforting. You blink slowly, once, then again. The new double blink that means I'm aware. Welcome back. You've been asleep for 9 Earth hours, perfectly timed, neuro-optimized, REM-rich, but something feels different. Not wrong, not bad, just slightly off axis, like waking up on the wrong side of a good dream. You stretch. The room adjusts its hue based on your dopamine levels. There's no clock here. Not in the traditional sense, just a sense of time flowing finally, with you instead of against you. You're living in sync now, and that's when it hits you. It's time to decide whether you're going to stay or move on. The world you've returned to has gently made space for you. It hasn't demanded answers. It hasn't pressed you into service. But there's an unspoken tension under everything. The question people blink but never say out loud. What are you going to do with all this time you didn't spend aging? You stare out your window. Above the city you can see a virtual solar lattice, orbiting lazily around the atmosphere like a lazy halo. It was only a prototype in your time. Now it's standard infrastructure, energy from every angle, clean, constant, beautiful. You start to get dressed. Your assigned clothing is simple and intelligent, not smart in the old sense. This fabric knows you. It syncs with your mood, warms or cools depending on stress levels, even tightens or relaxes to give you a sense of being grounded or free. Today, you choose grounded. You leave the dwelling and walk through the city with no clear destination. The people nod at you, or blink. A few smile. Most just move out of the way gently, like the current parting for a boat that's earned its drift. You catch glimpses of avatars floating through the air, digital guides, family members visiting in projection form, AI historians built to observe, not speak. You pass one that briefly overlays your face with an older version of you. It flickers and vanishes. The city is full of contextual overlays, art, memories, messages, layered invisibly until relevant. You're not a stranger here. You're a relic who walked back into circulation, and that has consequences. You enter a garden, suspended in air of course, floating gently above the city core. The path winds through what looks like fog, but is really a virtual construct for mood regulation. Someone out there decided the human mind still needs misty mornings. You pause under a tree, real this time, and feel the sun on your skin. It feels like a miracle. You're not speeding past it, you're under it, present. A young adult, again assuming the civilization even uses age brackets, sits beside you without speaking. They glance at you, then look away, then finally blink the new universal query. "May I ask you something?" You return the blink. They hesitate. If you could upload your mind, why haven't you? Ah, there it is. Because this too has changed. Out here in this future, consciousness transfer isn't just real, it's normal. Most people don't die anymore, not in the old sense. They migrate into synthetic bodies, into quantum minds, into digital communes that drift like clouds above the data layer of the world. You still breathe, still bleed, still ache. You are organic and rare. You exhale slowly. Because I don't want to trade one kind of detachment for another, you say. They don't respond right away. Eventually they blink a soft, respectful thank you and float away, mist swirling behind them. You're not anti-technology. You're too much of it now to ever pretend you're not woven into the machinery of time. But something about keeping your body, your heart, your skin, your own internal clock, feels true in a way light-speed travel never did. Maybe you spent so long slowing your aging that you forgot what it was for. Not to extend your life, but to live it. You walk on, past transparent towers that seem to grow as you pass, past schools where children debate philosophy with AI companions, past public theatres where memory is projected in full-sense detail, and people gather to feel something ancient together. And you start to think, maybe this world can be home. Here's a curious side note you overhear from a historical AI kiosk. During the early centuries of relativistic travel, a few returning astronauts actually chose to age themselves artificially. They'd missed their families, their friends. They didn't want to be immortal in a world full of ghosts. So they volunteered for time acceleration therapy, compressed biological aging to catch up. Historians still argue whether it was bravery or heartbreak. You, though, you're not ready for that. You're not ready to speed up again. Not yet. You're finally moving through time at its intended speed. No tricks, no hacks, no shortcuts. Every minute is yours. Every wrinkle will be earned. Every night's rest will bring you one day closer to something shared. And here, in the cradle of this strange, elegant future, you realize you don't have to be a traveler anymore. You just have to be you, a person, present, aging, living. You find the archive by accident. It's not hidden, just overlooked. Tucked into the lower layer of the city, beneath the floating parks and solar shells and whispering towers, there's a quiet corridor that leads to a space no larger than an old library reading room. A cool, still place. No ambient music, no reactive walls, just quiet air, dim light, and a few others sitting alone in silence. This is where they store the returns. Not objects, not artifacts. People. Travellers like you. You walk slowly between softly pulsing glass walls. Within each is a holographic journal, personal logs, memory compilations, letters never sent. The records of those who, like you, slipped past the ordinary flow of time and returned, or tried to. Each one tells a slightly different story. Some came back joyful, some returned to nothing, a few didn't even try to integrate. They reboarded their ships and simply kept flying, cranking up their velocity until the stars blurred and the universe aged beyond recognition. You stop at one panel that shows a grainy clip of a woman laughing. She's surrounded by children, some bio, some digital constructs, and she's holding a birthday cake, floating in 0G, candles flickering inside a sealed dome. The caption reads, "Didn't need to freeze myself, just went fast enough." And you realise that's it. That's the whole trick. You never needed cryosleep, you never needed a pod or a chamber or a 100-year coma. You had something better, something simpler, physics. Because this right here is the crux of it. Cryosleep slows you down, but time dilation slows the world down instead. You remember the early theories, the ones that promised cryogenics would become the tool for interstellar travel. Freeze the body, wake up in the future, skip the tedium. But the body doesn't like freezing. Ice damages cells. Thawing is traumatic. Memory loss, tissue decay, biochemical confusion. You dodged all that by moving, not stopping. Your time on the ship wasn't frozen. It was continuous, smooth, yours. You lived every second. The world just fast-forwarded. There's something strangely comforting about that. You didn't sleep your life away. You just rerouted it, skipped the commercials, took the scenic bypass through the laws of the universe, and now here you are, sitting on a soft bench next to a translucent wall, watching another traveller's memories flicker across the glass like candlelight on water. You wonder what would have happened if you'd taken the cryo path instead. Woken up disoriented, sore, reeling with temporal vertigo. Instead you arrived sharp, clear, calm, You simply stepped out of one century and into the next, carrying your memories like luggage no one asked to see. Someone enters the archive behind you. You don't turn around at first, just listen. Their footsteps are soft but solid, real. No levitation tech, no float boots. "Excuse me," they say gently. Their voices roar in a way you haven't heard in a while. Not augmented, not smoothed by audio mod, just human. You turn to see a man, maybe in his 40s, or older, or younger. Honestly, it's hard to tell now. "I think I knew someone on your ship," he says. You blink. "Oh?" "My great-grandmother's sister," he says. "She applied to the program, didn't get in." You nod slowly. "I was the last one selected, by a margin of 3 points. He smiles. That's what the family story said. You sit together in the stillness of the archive. Neither of you talks much more. There's nothing to say. Just 1,000 years between you, bridged by a missed opportunity and the slow, steady beat of time realigning itself. Eventually he leaves. You stay, and you start thinking again. You think about the future, the one that came, the one you skipped, the one you've landed in like a stone in the river. You think about the people who chose cryo-sleep, their stories, their awakenings, their disorientation. And then you think about the choice you didn't even realize you made, to trust motion, to let relativity be your raft. Not a pause, not a freeze, a stretch. You were never asleep. You were simply moving faster than decay. And yes, it cost you something. Relationships, moments, the slow build of culture, the evolution of language, music and memes, the comfort of context. But you got something too, continuity. You remember everything. No time missing, no cold sleep gaps, no years erased by a synthetic slumber. You were present the entire way. Historians still argue whether cryo-sleep or relativistic travel offered the more ethical path forward. Some say sleep preserved identity better, others say motion preserved agency. A few fringe thinkers even believe cryo-sleep caused subtle neurological degradation over time, soul fog they call it, though no one can define it. You feel no fog, you feel like you. And in a world where minds are being uploaded and bodies are being synthesized, and consciousness is casually archived and reconstructed, maybe that's your greatest asset. Your one long, unbroken line of experience. No interruptions, no edits, just you. Your name still matches the person who launched. Your reflection, though in a newer mirror, still matches the face you've always known. You didn't miss your life. You just played it in a different key. As you step out of the archive back into the brighter flow of the city, you realize something else. You've already outlived most of your generation. And you're still not done. The ship is still waiting in orbit. You don't have to go, but you could. You could crank up the speed again, chase the dying light of stars that haven't even formed yet. You could keep dodging decay, keep stepping around entropy like some cosmic street performer. Or you could stay, let the seconds matter again. Grow older, wrinkle by wrinkle, breath by breath. Either way, you know now. You don't need to freeze yourself to reach the future. You just have to move fast enough to leave the present behind. So here's the thought that sneaks in when you're least expecting it, while watching clouds unroll themselves over a floating orchard, or sipping something that insists it's tea even though it glows faintly blue. You could stay this way forever. Technically, you're not aging, not in the ordinary sense, at least not enough to notice. Your body's still the same, tuned, preserved, functioning as if time itself forgot to press down on your shoulders. Sure, you've re-entered normal space-time. Sure, the seconds are moving again. But you know how to cheat. You know the speed secret now. If you boarded that ship tomorrow and hit the throttle hard enough, you could push yourself right back into that slow lane of aging, live another 100 subjective years while 1,000 pass outside, skip ahead, leapfrog over wars, politics, even awkward conversations. You could be forever young, technically. And the idea is tempting, not just for the immortality angle, but for the silence, the clarity, the strange meditative state of slipping through a quiet universe where stars stretch like smudges and time curls away behind you like a forgotten bookmark. But what kind of life is that, really? The first time it felt like freedom. Now it feels a bit more like pause, and after all the effort you've spent stitching yourself back into this timeline, learning the new gestures, the new tones, the way people say good morning with scent pulses instead of words, are you really ready to let go again? Still, the ship is ready, fully fueled, maintained, worshipped, honestly. You took a tour last week, walked the corridors like an archaeologist revisiting a childhood home. Everything had been cleaned, preserved. Nothing had been changed. Even your old coffee cup was still sitting in its magnetic holder, as if waiting for you to return from a very long, very slow walk. They've upgraded the systems, of course. Your old control panels are now accessible via gesture or thought. The engines are quieter, more efficient, but they still bend time the same way. The universe doesn't care how clean your UI is. It only cares about your speed. And at sufficient speed, time bows. You remember the numbers. 99.9% light speed equals decades of Earth time per year of your own. 99.9999% equals centuries. Approach the asymptote and the math gets meaningless. 1 week for you could be 10,000 years, and the older you get, the more that sounds like an appealing loophole. Not because you're afraid of death, although let's be honest, who isn't a little, but because you're curious about how far you could go, how much you could see, what the universe might look like after civilization, because eventually even this shiny, optimized, harmony-flavored future will decay. Empires rise, societies collapse, solar rings rust, the planet won't last forever, neither will the people, but you could keep going, you could outlast them all, and that's a dangerous kind of power. Historians still argue whether the relativity immortals of the past, those few explorers who never came back, were brave or cowardly. Some say they ran from time, from the pain of loss, from the ache of watching loved ones age and vanish. Others claim they went in pursuit of knowledge, hoping to be humanity's final witness. The truth is probably both. And now you get to decide whether to join them. You talk to the archive director one afternoon, sitting across from them in a shared meditation chamber shaped like a lotus. They're part organic, part mimetic construct, and wholly unfazed by time. "I've been thinking," you say, "about going again." They nod slowly. "Forward?" "Yes." "Permanently?" You don't answer right away, because how do you explain it? The hunger to see stars being born, to watch the galaxy spin itself silly, to press your palm against the glass and feel the quiet hum of an uncaring, unfolding cosmos. They sense your hesitation and offer only this: whatever path you take, let it be chosen, not fled into. And that lands, it sinks deep. Because that's what's different now, isn't it? The first time you left because it was the mission, the experiment, the great unknown. You didn't choose the consequences, they just happened. But now, every second you live is one you've deliberately decided to keep. And yes, aging has returned, slowly, like a shy animal creeping back into the room. You've noticed it in tiny ways. Your reflexes feel just a breath behind the rhythm of these newer people. Your memory, while still sharp, sometimes stumbles on the word for something that no longer exists. Your body, though preserved, has begun to belong to this timeline again, and it's beautiful. Terrifying, yes, but beautiful. Because it means you're part of the story again, not hovering above it, not skimming its surface, inside it, and still. The temptation lingers, the ship, the speed, the stars. One more jump, one more skip. What would it be like to visit the year 12,000? to see the sun expand, to drift past a humanity that's long since left biology behind, to reach a moment when even the archives forget your name and only the stars remember you as a blur of motion and mass. You could do it, easily. No one would stop you. They'd even help. But today you stay. You walk out of the chamber into sunlight filtered through a layer of living glass. You smell something citrusy on the breeze, a combination of real air and engineered joy. You blink twice at a passing couple who float together hand in hand, pausing just long enough to smile your way. You are to them a legend who chose not to disappear, and in that moment it feels like enough. Because immortality isn't about escaping aging. It's about continuing to choose life, even when it doesn't follow your old rules. So maybe someday you'll go again, but not yet. For now, you'll stay. You'll walk. You'll breathe. You'll listen to the birds, even if they're artificial. You'll eat weird glowing fruit and laugh at jokes you only half understand. You'll let your skin wrinkle. You'll learn the new seasons. You'll age. Because if you can choose to stop time, then choosing not to is a kind of power too. You find yourself walking by the river one evening. Not a real river, of course, but a carefully engineered ribbon of temperature-responsive liquid, tuned to shimmer like moonlight and curve through the city's lower layers like a pulse of nostalgia. You walk slowly, hands in your pockets, letting the strange new world wrap around you like a slightly oversized coat. That's when the thought sneaks in, uninvited, unspoken, but sharp as ever. If you could have travelled near light speed back then, would you have left sooner? The question has teeth. Because as much as you came here in the name of exploration and physics and the advancement of human knowledge, let's be honest, part of you was running. Heartbreak, regret, loss. It was all there, tucked behind the mission reports and lab tests and launch simulations. And when the chance came to strap yourself into a vessel that would pull you out of sync with the rest of humanity, you didn't hesitate. You told people it was for science. And it was. But it was also an escape. Because when you're moving near light speed, you're not just accelerating away from space, you're escaping emotion's deadline. You remember what it felt like, that strange relief as the engines fired and the planet shrank behind you. That quiet exhale when the first messages stopped coming through. The end of birthdays, anniversaries, awkward holidays, and gut-churning texts. In space, nothing reminds you of what you lost. And maybe that was the point. Historians still argue whether the first relativistic travellers were heroes or cowards, pioneers or avoidance experts with really expensive escape routes. Probably both, depending on the mission. But there's a certain truth no one talks about. Grief doesn't move at light speed. It stays behind. You didn't age, but your pain matured without you. Slowly, in the background, like background radiation you only feel once you stop moving. Now that you're back, you notice it. The echoes, the old memories, that one voicemail you can't delete, even though it no longer formats properly in modern systems. You have to play it on an emulation layer now. The voice stutters, warped by compression, but the feeling still punches through. Call me back when you land. I miss you. You never called back, not because you didn't want to, because you couldn't. They were gone before the signal reached you. You kept flying, they kept aging. And one day you blinked, and they were a tombstone and a family line that no longer knows your face. You sit by the river and feel it wash over you. Not the pain, the understanding. You could have kept running, could have gotten back in that ship and pushed past the edges of the known universe, outrun every bad feeling, every unresolved chapter, every birthday you missed on purpose. But now that you've tasted stillness again, you realise grief is the cost of being real. Speed numbs, stillness heals. You start to see why they all seemed to pity you when you landed. Not openly, but in the careful way they spoke, the sideways glances. You weren't just a traveller. You were someone who had never sat still long enough to feel the full weight of what you left behind, until now, and still a part of you wonders, What if you'd gotten in that ship even sooner, before the fight, before the loss, before the things that made you want to escape in the first place? Would you have avoided the heartbreak? Maybe. But then, would you still be you? Because here's the brutal little secret about moving at relativistic speed. Yes, you age slower. Yes, you skip ahead. But you don't get to choose what you skip. Love, pain, beauty, failure, peace, regret. It's all bundled together. You can't cherry pick. You don't get to say, I want to skip the worst parts. You skip everything or nothing. That's the deal. You remember a story you read once, way back before launch. Maybe it was ancient Greek myth. Maybe a sci-fi pulp from the 1950s. A character gets the gift of immortality but not eternal youth. Ages forever, regrets it. But at least they lived it. You, for a long time, didn't. You just floated. Now you're feeling every second like a slow sip of something strong. Time's back on your shoulders and it's so good. Even the sadness, even the mistakes. Because those things ground you, remind you who you are. That you're not a line of math curving away from home. You're a person. Someone who lived, lost, and eventually came back. Maybe that's what they mean when they talk about the loneliness of longevity. Not just that you outlive people, but that you outlive the parts of yourself that could have grown alongside them. And it hits you sitting there by the river that isn't really a river. The solution to grief isn't escape velocity. It's presence. You stand, stretching gently, and glance at your reflection in the fluid surface. You look good, sure, almost too good. A body stuck in time, polished by relativistic mercy. But your eyes have miles behind them. Real miles. Not the kind you measure with speed, the kind you carry. And in those eyes, you see something you didn't expect. Readiness, not to launch again, not yet, but to stay, to feel, to build something new in this strange future world, even if your references are all outdated and your jokes land wrong. You walk slowly back through the city. The breeze smells like citrus and memory. Someone hands you a flower that changes colour based on your mood. It turns gold in your hands. You're not sure what that means yet. You keep it anyway, because you're not running anymore. You're walking, and for the first time in a long, long time, you're finally catching up. You're sitting at a cafe, or the closest equivalent in this century, when you notice something strange across the plaza. A group of tall, silver-skinned beings steps off a low-floating transport. Not humans, not augmented humans, aliens, real ones. Not simulated, not avatars, not some strange art installation you're supposed to interpret emotionally. They walk like people, gesture like people, even blink the new double blink, though slightly slower, like someone still getting used to a second language. And then you realise they're staring at you. The taller one, possibly their leader, or possibly just the only one tall enough to need ducking under the cafe awning, approaches with soft, deliberate steps. Their body glimmers faintly in the light, like they're made of brushed mercury, and their voice emerges from a speaker draped around their neck. Not because they can't speak, just because they want to get it right. "You are the traveller," they say. You nod. It's become a kind of job title at this point. "We would like to speak," they add, "about time." Of course they do. You've become something of a curiosity in this part of the galaxy. Not because you're special, not anymore, but because of how long you've been around. To the local civilizations, human and otherwise, you are a fixed point in a very flexible timeline. And among all these advanced species with their wormholes and FTL jumps and strange symbiotic navigators who fold space with their dreams, you represent something that doesn't compute. You never cheated. You didn't bend time. You didn't skip over space-time with quantum slip drives. You didn't offload your mind into a digital stream and cruise between stars at the speed of light as pure information. You just moved fast, slowly, relatively. Honestly, it's old school now, but it worked, And that's what fascinates them. They sit across from you. No drink, no food, just presence, and begin to ask questions about your flight, your sleep, your dreams, your loneliness. The little things, like how it felt when you noticed Earth's first messages growing fewer, then stranger, then gone. You explain as best you can. They don't nod, but they do something similar, an almost imperceptible pulse along the surface of their skin, like a shimmer of recognition. And then one of them says it. We travelled too, but not as you did. Oh? We used folding drives, skipped time, compressed it, arrived where we wanted to be, but something was lost. You raise an eyebrow. We were older when we returned, not in body, but in meaning. That lands hard, because now you see it. Their bodies may be sleek, even ageless, but there's an exhaustion behind their movements, not fatigue, something deeper, like displacement. They didn't stretch time, they folded it, and folding breaks things. They were faster than you, they reached more places, saw more galaxies, but in doing so they left behind context. They missed the becoming part of the journey, no growth, just arrival. They are in a way the anti-you. You didn't skip time, you rode it, sailed through it, aged slowly, yes, but honestly. They say they envy that. You blink twice, they blink back. It's a strange moment, one you never thought you'd share with anyone, let alone beings who probably had wormhole tech before your species figured out how to boil water. But there it is. Mutual understanding, mutual regret. And then one of them laughs, a high metallic chime that vibrates your glass slightly. You're older than us, they say, though we were born first. And that's when you realize you are the space grandparent. To them, you're a kind of ancient figure, not in years, but in experience. Your path was slower, but richer, not compressed, but stretched. You didn't lose anything. You felt everything, and that makes you wise, terrifying, and apparently charming. They invite you to a gathering of interstellar time walkers, creatures and civilizations who've stepped sideways through history in different ways. Some used wormholes, others travelled at relativistic speeds. A few froze themselves and forgot why. You go, and there, among entities older than stars and beings who perceive time as scent and vibration, you're given a nickname, Still Rider. It sticks. Not because you were actually still, but because in all your racing you were the only one who stayed present, who kept the full thread of memory intact, who didn't fracture into versions of themselves across timelines. You wore time like a scarf, they wore it like a mask, and that makes all the difference. Here's a fringe theory one of the wormhole folk share with you during a long conversation in a shared memory pool. They believe there's a limit to how much skipping a consciousness can handle before it breaks. Not physically, psychologically. Something about identity, about cohesion. Their kind has seen travellers come back from jumps as shadows of themselves, all data intact, no signs of brain damage, but the spark, gone. The soul, if you want to get mystical about it, needs continuity, a thread, a personal timeline that makes sense. You didn't break that thread, you just slowed it down, gently, carefully. You're not the fastest, you're not the smartest, you're not even the most travelled, but you are the most whole, and that's rare. Back on Earth, or what passes for Earth these days, the archives update your profile to include a new tag, culturally recognised as temporal ambassador by 6 known civilizations. You snort at that. All you did was age in slow motion, but apparently that makes you valuable. You decide to stay for a while longer, talk, listen, share what it meant to age slower than the universe, not to avoid death, but to experience meaning without time rushing past your fingertips. Because you finally get it now. You didn't cheat time, you partnered with it. The more you speak, the more they listen. Not just the humans, if they still qualify as humans with their glassy bones and slow drifting thoughts, but the others too. The travellers, the jumpers, the skip walkers, entities whose bodies have long since detached from biology and who now hover in magnetic frames or live in shimmering data clouds. Some of them wear faces when they speak to you, borrowed faces stitched together from fragments of your own memories. It's unsettling but weirdly considerate. You're sitting in a floating amphitheatre now. They call it the Echo Fold, a name that means nothing and everything depending on your timeline. It isn't made of stone or steel, but of compressed time particles woven into solid light. The structure exists out of phase, flickering softly, and it only solidifies when someone needs to remember. And they want to remember you. One by one, the civilizations gather. Some arrive physically, others stream their consciousness into temporary hosts. Some appear as fractal shadows, spiraling symbols of mathematics so complex they fold inward just by being observed. They come from different corners of the galaxy, and maybe from other galaxies entirely. And for once, they are not here to debate wormholes or faster-than-light signal loops or the latest quantum migrations. They're here to talk about time and how it hurts. Because despite all their advancements, all their compressed journeys and gravity-twisting worm drives, none of them escaped aging. They escaped duration, sure, but not meaning, not grief, not dislocation. They skipped, they blinked, they folded, but they also lost. Entire worlds passed in their absence. Cultures collapsed, stars went cold. They returned to places that no longer recognized them. Some never returned at all, just floated through a universe they couldn't connect to anymore. They had all travelled, but none had truly lived through, except you. You, with your slow glide ship and your absurdly simple velocity. You, who didn't break the timeline, just stretched it like taffy. You didn't leave and come back. You simply moved forward at a different pace. And so, they ask you the question no one's dared to answer. How do you survive time? You don't know if they mean biologically, emotionally, spiritually, maybe all of it. You think for a moment, then another. The theatre waits. The air is thick with attention. And finally you say, you don't survive time, you travel with it. They don't speak, but you feel a slow ripple, like a silent collective exhale across 100 sentient species. You tell them what it felt like to watch Earth fall away and not look back, to celebrate a birthday you no longer believed in, to wake up from a nap and realize an empire had risen and fallen, to return to a planet that remembered you more as myth than person. You describe the loneliness, not just the absence of people, but the absence of belonging. You describe the moment time caught up with you, and how strange it felt to be visible again. And you describe the choice to stay. Because that's what they can't understand, that's what they never do. They never stay, they leap, they race, they outpace the pain, and in doing so they outrun the living part too. Historians, if the word even still applies, once argued whether ancient humans truly grasped the weight of time, but now you can confirm it. They did. Not with equations or neural overlays, but with stories, songs, wrinkles, holding someone's hand as they aged beside you. Those are the things that stuck. One of the shimmering light beings approaches you after the gathering ends. Their shape twists gently in the gravity curve, but when they speak, their voice is simple, clear. We once stretched ourselves across 17 dimensions, they say, but we forgot our beginning, and then we had no reason to continue. You nod slowly, they continue. We've been watching your kind, your version of time, your insistence on duration. It is difficult, but beautiful. You tell them the truth. It wasn't always a choice. Sometimes you stayed in the moment simply because you had no way out. Sometimes you kept going because there was no going back. And sometimes you didn't want to face what was waiting on the other side of stillness. But now you know that staying, slowing down, was the bravest thing you ever did. Because time, as they all eventually learn, is not an enemy. It's not a thing to conquer or bypass, it's a conversation, and you've been listening for a very, very long time. Later that cycle, you sit alone at the top of a sky hill, an artificial cliff carved into low orbit. From here, you can see Earth's modern crust, layered with cities that pulse like living things, wrapped in green again thanks to some long-forgotten climate reclamation initiative. And there, beside you, something hums. It's a small device, left by one of the visiting civilizations. No name, no instructions, just an interface that opens to a time capsule, but not one meant for the past. This one's for the future. You record a message. You tell them who you were, who you are, what it felt like to trade speed for silence, silence for presence, and presence for purpose. You tell them not to fear aging, not to fear staying, not to fear feeling, and then you close the capsule. You don't know where it will end up. Maybe orbiting a forgotten moon. Maybe tucked inside a wormhole. Maybe it'll be found long after every civilization you've ever known is gone. But it doesn't matter, because time will carry it, just like it carried you. And maybe one day, when some distant traveller stops running long enough to listen, they'll find your voice, echoing across the quiet stretch of the future. Still here, still whole, still riding time, and now, finally, you turn around. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, actually. You stand in the central control ring of your old ship, surrounded by softly glowing displays and gentle mechanical murmurs. It's all been updated, of course, but the bone's the same. The chair remembers your posture. The air still carries the faintest trace of that recycled lemon scent you used to hate, but now feel oddly nostalgic for. You place your hand on the panel. The ship comes alive like it's been waiting this whole time. It has, and so have you. Because this was always the question, wasn't it? Do you keep going forward, or do you finally go back? The scientists say it's possible, barely. With the right flight path, the right deceleration arc, the right gravitational sling, you could return to a place where Earth still exists in some older form. A place where your journey hasn't made you a museum piece, a mythical ambassador, or an accidental god. You could land on an Earth that remembers your launch date, where the oceans haven't risen, and coffee still tastes like regret and cream, and dogs still bark at vacuum cleaners. But only if you turn around now. Because the longer you wait, the more distant the past becomes, not just in time, but in possibility. It's not just about aging backward. That's not how it works. You know that. It's about re-entering the thread of time where your life still belonged. So you weigh it. Everything you've gained, centuries of perspective, friendships with species who smell in music, a new understanding of time as a personal local thing, rather than some universal metronome. And everything you've lost, your era, your people, your place, you breathe, you sit, you close your eyes and imagine it, pulling a hard U-turn at relativistic speed, watching the stars blur again, this time in reverse, not to escape the future, but to reclaim a slice of the past. But then something strange happens. You don't initiate the turn, not yet. Because your mind, sharpened by stillness, no longer jumps at urgency. Instead, you remember something small, almost stupid, a memory, a Tuesday morning, the old Earth. You're in a kitchen, your kitchen, and there's a song playing on a dusty speaker, one you've long forgotten the lyrics to. Outside, someone is mowing the lawn 2 doors down. You're holding a coffee mug that says "World's Okayest Astronaut." And for that 1 second, nothing happens. Nothing important anyway. And it was perfect. You smile, you open your eyes, and you make a decision. You will not go back. Not because you don't want to, not because it wouldn't be possible, but because time doesn't work that way. Not emotionally, not meaningfully. The past is a place you carry, not a destination you can land on. And you're not just a traveller anymore. You're a witness, a participant, a reminder. You've lived both fast and slow. You've skipped centuries and savoured seconds. You've seen what happens when people rush ahead and what happens when they try to go back. Now you choose presence. Your ship remains powered, but idle. It doesn't sulk, it doesn't groan, it simply waits, like a faithful dog resting by your feet, knowing there may never be another walk. You step outside, the world welcomes you again, not with fanfare, not with fireworks, but with a breeze, soft, warm, whispering through the urban gardens above the old docking platform. You walk among it all. People and beings and sounds that shouldn't make sense together, but somehow do. And you feel your body begin to change. Not drastically, but for the first time in longer than you can remember, the mirror reflects time's honesty. A laugh line, a silver strand, a shift in your walk, nothing to fear. It's not decay, it's not a curse, it's a language, a gentle one, and you're finally fluent. You stop under a bioluminescent tree. One of the kids from earlier, half organic, half some kind of glowing fabric, runs up to you. Are you the one who went so fast time stopped? You grin. Sort of. Can you teach me how? You kneel down, joints creaking a little. Finally. You don't need to go fast, you say. You just need to go fully. They blink. Not quite understanding, but holding on to the words anyway. That's enough. You stand, stretch, walk toward the city's edge. There's no ceremony waiting for you. No last transmission, no countdown, just a life. Still here, still forward, still yours. You don't need the ship, because you've already arrived. And now, as the stars begin to peek through the slow fall of twilight, you sit in silence. Time moves gently around you. It doesn't rush, it doesn't press, it just carries. And you let it. You've chased the speed of light. You've skipped centuries like stones across water. You've slept through the rise and fall of civilizations and learned how quiet the universe becomes when you outrun even grief. But here, now, the world is still, not frozen, not paused, just slow enough to savour. The sounds of the city drift over you like distant rain. A laugh, a wind chime, a child's question, nothing urgent, nothing waiting to collapse into memory. Just this, and that's all you ever needed. Not youth, not speed, not immortality. Just one full second, lived all the way through. You close your eyes, your breathing slows, your thoughts stretch out like lazy shadows. There is no ship, no mission, just a body, a moment, a soft hum of something that could be peace. And maybe, if the stars are feeling generous, a dream that lingers just long enough to remember how far you've come. How far we all go really when we stop trying to outrun time and just let it walk beside us.